Top Star Bowling with the top bowling stars of America. Brought to you by Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Top Star Bowling from the Hoffman Lanes here at Hoffman Estates, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. I'm Jack Buck, and each week we come along here on Top Star Bowling, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you some of the outstanding stars of bowling, both men and women, by the way, and the ladies will be appearing on the show very shortly, and they are all competing for a portion of the $40,000 in prize money. $1,000 to the winner each week, $500 to the loser, along with a very attractive LaSalle wristwatch. And we have a fellow here who's getting to be a part of the show, as much as this will be his fourth appearance on this particular program. This is a King of the Hill format. 3 games, total pins is what brings about a winner. And this fellow has been totaling higher than 3 opponents, and so here he is back for the 4th time from Houston, Texas, a former Chicagoan, Don Ellis. Don, once more.
How are you this week?
Listen, when your hand gets sore after a while, it's not going to be from the bowling, it's from you and I shaking hands so often.
That would be all right. I'd like to shake hands that often with you.
Let me see. Andy Rogoznica was a victim, and then Bob Chase.
Right.
And then Buzz Fazio.
Last week, right.
And you have your hands full once again today.
Sure do. Dick Hoover coming up.
And that's what makes the series so darn good. These top star bowlers coming in from all over the country to challenge not only to win, but to stay on the show. Here is a fellow who's the only one to ever win the Masters tournament 2 years in a row. He's from Akron and St. Louis, Mr. Dick Hoover. Dick, good to see you.
Nice seeing you, Jack.
You fellas move around so much, someday I'm going to have to read a list of the cities where you're living, where you have lived.
That's right.
How do you like the lanes? I know that you've worked extensively before the show here.
Well, I think you're in very fine shape, Jack, and you should see some very nice scores.
Everybody tells me that we should anticipate this visit by you because you throw the ball a good deal harder than most of the other bowlers.
Well, a little bit harder, yes.
A couple of, maybe half a year ago, I ran into you and you told me you were slowing down a little bit. You were still throwing harder than anybody else.
Well, I got married a couple of years ago, and I'm eating 3 meals a day now, so I'm getting a little older, you know, slowing down.
Speaking of being married, Don Ellis is furnishing a new home down in Houston. Does that interest you?
Well, I hope he don't completely furnish it this year.
He doesn't want you to win today.
Oh, we got to get a little more furniture in that house.
Should be a terrific match, folks, and good luck to both of you. Don, Dick, good luck to you.
Good luck, Dick. Good luck, Don.
Don Ellis and Dick Hoover, and we're all set here on Top Star Bowling. I should like to point out that this is an ABC-sanctioned tournament. Don Ellis is getting us off and running on lane number 29. And there's no better way to start with that. Late action from the 6-pin, takes the 10, gets his strike. And that's usually been the way he has started on each of these shows. This is his 4th week here. In other words, today, he'll be shooting for $1,000. Here's Dick Hoover. Quite a contrast in styles of these 2 bowlers. Hoover gets to the head pin but doesn't do much with it. 2-4-5-8 is left up there. Alongside is Jerome Whitey Harris, who is our statistician. You'll be hearing some valid comments from Whitey as we go along. Whitey, a member of the Brunswick advisory staff. Here's Dick Hoover trying for the mark. A lot of ways to miss this one. And, of course, a way to get it. I like that. There's the mark. There's the spare for Dick Hoover. 3 games, total pins. Now Dick moves over to 29 to get us off and running. I mentioned the ladies at the outset of the show. We're going to have some wonderful gals here for you to view. Laverne Carter, Marion Ladwig, Shirley Garms, and Joy Abel. There's Dick Hoover looking for his first strike, and he leaves the 4-pin with a pretty good hit. That'll be a special show, by the way, because for the most part it'll be men, and the names that you will recognize, such as Don Carter and Bill Pace and Bill Tucker and Carl Al Richards, Steve Nagy, Dick Agee, Glenn Blakesley. You name them, they'll be here on Top Star Bowling. 19 in the first frame for Dick Hoover with a spare up now. And Don Ellis be trying to get off in front in the match with a double. Ellis has averaged 211 during the past 3 weeks on this show, this being his fourth appearance. And he leaves the 2-8 as they drop one after the other. Don working on a strike. Bring this one back and then have a 1-pin advantage here in the early going. Have to have that ball driving through there for you on this 2-8. There was no doubt about it. There is no way for the pins to stand up under that delivery. Ellis defeated Andy Rogoznica, then Bob Chase, and then Buzz Fazio. Here's yet another big name in bowling, Dick Hoover. Dick is from Akron and St. Louis. Hey, that 2-pin didn't come the right way to please Don Ellis. He's a rather relaxed fellow, but quite intense. Good deal of concentration up there. Might explain the two different cities. Dick did most of his bowling and gained his original amount of fame in Akron, and then was taken on by a team and moved to St. Louis because these teams keep quite busy. Don Ellis takes the head pin down. Has 39 through the second frame with a spare up. Here's Dick Hoover looking for his first strike of the game. And when he gets on those strikes, he's just as likely to not stop. Big, strong, fire strike. Really fires that ball in there, but it's not just to display his strength. He turns right now a message, and then we'll come back to meet one of our bowlers. That ball over and has it working nicely for him at the same time. And a chance for Dick to get his double right here.
Jack, it might be interesting for the viewing public to wonder how these fellas determine who shoots first. Do you realize that Ellis lost the flip each time and has bowled first?
The other fellow selects the alley usually. There's the 2-8 on a very, very thin hit. It was surprising to see such a pin count. They got some good action, leaves the 2-8, and that's the one that Don Ellis had to shoot just a moment ago. So each bowler has missed the opportunity of picking up the double here early in the going. And he covered it just as nicely as Don Ellis did. You heard us mention a while ago that Dick is the only one to ever win the Masters 2 years in a row, and he did that in 56 and 57. Here's Don Ellis working on a spare, getting a strike. Looked like for a moment it might dive in there and be a bit too high, but it did not. 59 through the third with a strike up for Don, and he's trying to become the first one to get the double. Billy Golombiewski, by the way, won the Masters twice, but not 2 years in a row, as Dick Hoover did. To complete that subject, and now is Don Ellis there? Yeah. That 7-pin was the last one to drop. In fact, there were 2 pins going after that 7. There's the first double, and Don Ellis takes the lead in the match. Now Dick Hoover is working on a spare. They each had 59 through the third frame. And that double puts Don Ellis out in front. And Dick Hoover gets there, rocks the 5-pin, spins it around, but it doesn't drop. The ball didn't quite finish for him. He got up very nicely, and it looked like it might carry. But when that 5-pin remains, there's only one reason for it, and that is that that ball failed to drive through there. Right, Whitey?
That's it, Jack. With his speed, that will happen a lot of times because the ball seemed to drop off on the right lane here.
Does it happen to Dick more often? Leaving that 5-pin because of that speed?
Yes.
Well, that takes care of 5 frames, and Don Ellis has 59 through the 3rd with a double working for him, and Dick Hoover has 78 through the 4th with a spare up. Who has had but 1 strike in the that coming back in the 3rd frame goes again. He left the 2-8 here before and licked the 10-pin now. He'll also get quite a few 10-pin taps, Whitey, because of that speed.
Yeah, when we were talking to Don earlier in last week's show, remember they said that left lane was an inside. Well, for Dick Hoover, with the speed that he generates, when he plays inside, the ball has a tendency to slide.
He really flipped that 6-pin that time, right over the 10. Has to shoot the 10 now, as he goes 97 through the 5th frame. Gets that ball out there. And the spare. Don't ever mention the 6-10 to Dick Hoover, by the way. He blew in here a short while ago. Probably seems like only yesterday to him in a big tournament that cost his title. And if my memory serves me correctly, that's what Don Ellis did quite a few times last week. Outside in that particular lane, just barely getting up to head pin. And the ball not carrying through for him. He leaves the 2-4-5. So he brought that double. He was looking for 3. Nonetheless, he is ahead in the match by 9 pins right at this point. Trying to cover the 2-4-5. So properly. Gets his spare. He's had no opens. Neither has Dick Hoover. The difference in the match is the global by Ellis and a 9-pin difference. They each have a spare working for them in the 6th. There's smooth Ellis delivery, and there's the strike. So I imagine he's looking back with a good deal of lament on his previous delivery where he left that 2-4-5. Dick Hoover's working on a spare.
Interesting point to note, Joe, that the pros, when they step up on the approach, they'll always look where they're standing before they start their initial movement to the foul line.
Hoover driving that ball out there, and another 10-pin tap. That seemed to be a little better from the previous one, but that's another 10-pin for him, 2 10-pins in a row. So he's worked in his last 4 deliveries, the 2-8, the 5, and then 2 10s. Previously, he left a 4-pin in the frame, so he's been in that pocket. And the fact that he has a line that enables him to get to the pocket is a pretty good indication that Don Ellis is going to be a busy fellow defending here before the day is over. Dick was a good deal more confident about the than some of the folks who are watching here. So Dick has 116 through the 6th, spare up, and only 1 strike so far in the match. And you just know he's going to end up with more than 1 strike. And I have a feeling he's going to put more than 2. So they each have a strike going for them now. Ellis going for the double here in the 8th frame with a lead in the match, 10 pins. Went a different line that time, threw a little bit harder, leaves the 6-10. He changed, didn't he, Whitey?
Yes, from here, Jack, it looks like, and more than a change, I think he just pulled the ball into the head pin.
6-10 is what remains. He failed to get that double, which would have doubled his lead.
His change might have been the result, Jack. If you recall the last frame, he had the 2-5, which was a light hit.
So he wanted to make sure to get up there, and he did so too much. There have been no opens in the match. 146 for Don Ellis through the 7th with a screw up coming out of the 9th frame. I think this 9th frame is so important and gives you one to work on in the war. And of course, Dick Hoover, you'll remember, has a strike working for him in the 8th. So let's see what Don does here. He has struck on this pair in the last 2 times. He got some action from the 6th, but no 10-pin. That's the first 10-pin left. He had the 6-10 previously. Gives him 165 for the 8th, looking for the spare. If he picks this, he'll have an eventual game of 215. He does pick it. Now here's Dick Hoover with a chance to not only even the match, but go ahead here in the first game if he can get this double. He hasn't hit this lane yet. Had a 10-pin here last time. The 7 was looking at him for a while this time. The 7-pin was there for just an instant. There's the double, and the match, for all intents and purposes, is even.
I think he wanted to prove to you, Jack, when you made a statement he hasn't hit this lane.
And that's his third strike. Let me see. Don Ellis has 1, 2, 3, 4 strikes. Now the 10th frame for Mr. Hoover. Yeah. Back in 1946, when you and I were just kids, Hoover rolled the highest series ever while in league play by a teenager, 847. So he has that sort of bowling background going for him. Looking for a spare here in the 10th frame. And he gets it now. Going to end up with 205. .15 for Don Ellis if he can hit the 3 of them in his roll-off. So we're going to have an even game here, it appears, in the first game of our match, where total pins count, shooting for $1,000. Dick looking for the big count. And he gets the 9. 204. 204 for Dick Hoover in the first game. Further reminder that Don Ellis has averaged 211 in the 6 games, the 9 games so far. This being his 4th visit to Top Star Bowling. He's working on a spare. First big one leaves the baby split 310. So the match is going to be even closer than we contemplated. 183 to pick this and come back with a 10 count for 203, and Dick Hoover with a 204 is going to be the leader at the end of this first game. Did he get the split? Yep. 2-0 something, evidently, for Mr. Don Ellis. Who's going to knock this fellow off? Is it Dick Hoover today? For Don Ellis, a game 2-0-1. 2-0-1 for Don and a 2-pin lead for Dick Hoover. At the end of the first game of our match, where total pins brought. At the end of the first game, Dick Hoover 2-0-4. Don Ellis 2-0-1. 3-pin lead for Dick Hoover, the champion here today. Salary. But Dick Hoover, prior to the start of the second game, Dick, you look pretty relaxed with that 3-pin lead.
Well, that's not near enough. Dick over bowling a guy like Don Ellis out here. More like a 300-pin lead would be a little better.
That one key frame was that a tough 10-pin you left that kept you from stringing them together.
Yeah, I had a couple of them in there that could have loosened you up a little bit so you can go out there and throw a little bit more relaxed. And, well, I guess that's the reason they called it, or they added pin to the game, because you leave it up quite often.
5-pin you left. And do you leave more 5-pins than the other top Floyd bowlers?
Well, that particular one there was a little bit on the side. However, I got good rattle out of it, and I thought it was going to go over. But on the ordinary, I do leave quite a few more than the regular bowlers due to the speed.
You're not going to change them?
No, not now.
Should be a lot of fun.
Well, we hope so, anyhow.
All right, good luck to you as we continue
Thank you.
along, Dick. Dick Hoover and Don Ellis here, and Top Star Bowling continues. Dick Hoover leading off here in the second game. On 29. Strikes. It's better than they did in the first game when he started with the spare. Seemed to get that one out in very fine form. Here's Don Ellis on 30. He's right with second arrow and right in the pocket. Well, strike for each of them. This, by the way, is marked 10 games that Don has bowled here on Top Star Bowling. And of the 10, only one has been under 200. That was a 196 game. Had 201 here in the first game, and that's going to take the average down somewhat from the 211 which he had at the start of the day. I think he feels he was pretty lucky to get away with that one, Whitey.
Well, in his previous 3 matches, Jack, first game, there's always been a difference of, say, 5 pins with his opponent. Either way, he was either up leading twice, and now he's been down twice with only 3 to 5 difference.
He has a double, and Dick Hoover has to match him. And double for each. As indicated before, this tournament is sanctioned by USBC, the American Bowling Congress, and so all prizes connected therein will apply to this particular series where $40,000 is involved. Is that 3? Get
There's an expression called blasting, Jack, and there was a good example of it.
That's what he does. Certainly quite a contrast in styles here, and something for you bowlers to learn and to observe. I think everybody in the house knew Breville was going to get there. Leaves the 1-2. There's 28 in the first quarter. So Dick Hoover at this point has added his lead of 3 pins, which prevailed at the score. And he covers them both. It's the way to cover that one. Get to them both. You don't have to worry about the angle that you strike your red pin. Don Ellis on a spare now, 40 through the second frame with a spare up. And in the fourth frame, Don Ellis leaves the 10 pin. I think he's aware of the fact that Hoover looks very, very much at home on this pair of lanes, at the Hoffman Lanes. He certainly is aware of the fact that he was down at the outset. Despite his familiarity with the lanes here, Don is at the moment not hitting them as well as Dick Hoover. Don had 4 strikes in the first game, by the way, and Dick Hoover had 3. We've had no opens in the match so far. Dick Hoover has 3 in a row here at the start of the second game. Looking for 4 on the head pin and carry. He had an idea that he might carry it, even though he was pretty full on the head pin, Whitey.
Yes, you'll note that these pro bowlers, when they let that ball go, Jack, sometimes with the foul line, they're giving a lot of body English, and Jack, he went all the way down to the approach to help that 7-pin drop.
And he got it over for 4 in a row, looking for 5 now. And adding to his lead. Whoop, 8-pin, almost had the 8-10. Almost had that 8-10. We talked about his speed before, that of Dick Hoover. He'll leave a few 10 pins, he'll leave a few 5 pins, he'll come up with a 10 more often than a lot of top-star bowlers because of that speed he employs. So he's off the string of strike press to hit the 8-pin for the spare. He now has 109 through the fourth frame with a spare up. And it's time for Mr. Don Ellis to get started. He's working on a spare. He's in the fifth frame. 22-pin lead for 25-pin lead for Dick Hoover. And there's a 4-pin for Don Ellis. Left a 10-pin in the fourth, leaves a 4-pin here. After starting with a double, looks like he's going to have 3 spares. This Hoover seems to be very much at home here, Brian.
Yeah, he's definitely, like told you, Jack, I think he's established his line and the way he's hitting them there. He's showing the best form so far.
At the end of 5, he has 86 through the 4th with a spare up. Dick Hoover has 109 through the 4th, also with a spare up. Don Ellis is down 26 pins, and he just did get to the head pin, and he loses the 5-8. He's had a few thin hits that didn't carry for him.
For as much as Don in the last weeks, the way he had been hitting that left lane, Jack, he now looks like he's just trying to keep it away from the head pin. That's why he's been getting that 2, 4, 5, and like this particular hit here.
The 5-8 goes down. Dick Hoover, who started this match 3 pins to the good, has now increased his advantage to 26 pins in the match. Ready to turn that one over. There it goes. I think he wants this thou. I think he wants the big thou that's involved here today. That's what they call 1,000 up here in Chicago, Whitey. Thou. Here's Dick looking for double. And the 7-10. He was rooting for a little action on the part of those score kings down there, but nothing touched the 7.
A lot of ladies in the audience, Jack. I sometimes always tell them about bowling, you know, is reducing and things like that. But
You're
also
a fine one. You're a fine one to talk.
Yeah, but there's a lot of fun to the game. You got to think of it that way. So I think they encourage them a lot of times to go out with their husband and bowl too.
Right. Let's recap right here at this point. Don Ellis has 104 through the 5th with a spare up. Dick Hoover has 149 through the 6th with a spare up. Don Ellis is up, and he's down. Downward 28 pins, working on a spare. Bowling here in the 6th frame. Over that second arrow. And a 4-pin. Boy, he's got a tough angle going for him, Whitey, when he's in the pocket. He's got a bad angle, and he's left that 4-pin before. He left it in the 5th frame on the same alley. And it's rather critical for him, isn't it?
Yes, I think at the same time he looks like he's pointing a little bit. You know, we're extending his ball, pushing it up at the head pin.
And covering the 4-pin 4th square. I'm not trying to put the whammy on anybody when I repeat that we have had no opens in either game so far. The service spare working in the 7th. Hoover has 5 strikes in this game. Don Ellis has 2. He started the game with that double. On the spare, and high again. And what a mess he left there. The 7, 9, 10. Almost had the force over 9, 10. He'd have a better chance at it then, wouldn't he, Whitey?
That's true, Jeff. You got a bad break with that 4-pin dropping there. This is normally where the pro, and for so much money that's involved in something like this, he's going to gamble and try to get that 9, 10.
Uh-huh. All right, hey,
got it.
The one came out of the pit and knocked that 9-pin down, and if it had a little more force behind it, it could conceivably have gone over to get that 7. That would have been something.
Well, yes, it's not really funny, but those score pins do jump around a bit, Jack.
That one was jumping around, I tell you that. Well, that's the first open in the match. And a chance for Dick Hoover to get a comfortable lead right here. But no 10-pin for him. First game, Dick left a couple of 10 pins. A couple of 4 pins as well. Here's another 10 pin for him.
It's interesting to note, Jack, we've commented about Dick Hoover's speed, but you know that one time they actually tested the speed, and one of our greats, Joe Norris, actually threw the hardest in the research department.
Is that right? There's Hoover with his spare. Has 168 with the 7th. A rather substantial lead at this point for the Akronite, St. Louisan. turned that one over nicely. Boy, there's no doubt about that one. He really turned that one over. Got it out there and had plenty on it. There's his strike in the ninth frame, giving him 188 through the 8. 248 if he can go all the way. Ellis opened in the last frame. Found the angle that time. Gets his strike in the ninth. They each have one to work on as we go into the 10th frame. The difference in the match at the moment is 42 pins.
I'm going to need an abacus here to figure this out.
Down looking for the double, which he really needs. Gets it. He has to go all the way for 209. Ellis highs so far in his weeks here on Top Star Bowling, a 246 game in his high series, 652. Hey, 7. That 4 was off to the left of it as we look at it. Popping away at that 7, but couldn't knock it over. So he needs this now for 198. Which would give him 399. There it is, 198 for Don Ellis. Through the secondary. Dick Hoover has a strike up in the 9th frame. 188 through the 8th. Possible 248.
He's actually not lofting that ball over the line, Jack. Is determined bowling. He's digging it into the right up about 15 inches out. That's why you hear that particular thump of the ball.
He's a strong fellow, however, and has a good coordination, and therefore doesn't drop it like the average bowler would do if he were bowling in the same fashion.
No, it goes out in a trajectory, a flight.
Was able to hang on to that ball? No, not this time. He didn't get up. Leaves the 1-2. So that's a little less pin count that Don Ellis is going to have to overcome in the last game of this match. Total pins, $1,000 first prize, $500 second, and a very attractive. A message right here, and then we'll come back and get set for the third and final game here on Top Star Bowling. Watch. In addition to both men. 236 if Dick gets this in a 440 series. He gets them both, and you can see that we're rooting for those 2 pins because every one of them counts. 236 for Dick Hoover, 198 for Don Ellis, 399 total for Don at the end of the second game. Dick Hoover with a 440 for the 2 games, and a lead for Mr. Hoover of 41 pins right at this point. The terrible Texan is in trouble here as we get ready for the third and final game here on Top Star Bowling, and things have worsened, Norm.
You look pretty sad right now. 41 pins, an awful lot of pins to spot any man, much less Dick Hoover.
Rather than your own game, I think you have to look at what Dick has done so far in these 2 games.
He's been pounding that pocket very well. In fact, I think he's probably hit the pocket the best anyone so far on the show.
Mm-hmm. And it's been paying off for him, but bigger leads than 41 pins have been overcome.
They have been taken over.
I recall last week against Buzz Fazio, you were down, and then you were strung 5 in a row.
5 or 6.
And that's what you're going to need right here.
I'd like to start that with 6 and then try it again.
What shall we watch for? What are you going to be doing here? Anything different?
Nothing different, I don't think. I think I've pretty well got the line. It's just a matter of getting up there and throwing the ball right now.
Okay, fine, Don. Good luck to you as we continue.
Thank you, Jack.
Don Ellis and Dick Hoover, third and final game coming up on Top Star Bowling. Well, there's no place to start like that first frame. Don Ellis down 41 pair in. Shoo! I was about to say he shows you what champions are made of, but the 10-pin wouldn't cooperate. Dick Hoover in the last game had 7 strikes, a total of 10. in the 2 games so far. Don Ellis 4 in each game. 440 for Dick Hoover, 399 for Don, shooting a 10-pin. I tell you, at this stage of the game, the way the scores look at the moment, any lapse in concentration or inability to cover the easy spares would certainly be disastrous to Don. Let's see how Dick Hoover starts. And a 4-pin. Yes, sir, as Don Ellis indicated, this Hoover has been hitting the pocket. Let me see, looking back, it's been in that pocket every time. Last game he left was 7-pin, a 10-pin. Well, in the roll-off, he left the 1-2 in the second frame. There goes the 4-pin. But he's been there. Hasn't had an open so far. They each start with a spinner here in the 3rd and final game. Total pins count. Four-step approach. The ball and the 10-pin. That's 2 of them in a row. And I tell you, that's kept Don Ellis alive in this match here. Whitey?
Yes, Jack, and on that left lane, we keep commenting that it's an inside alley. But I don't know if Dick made a change that time, but he did go out past the second arrow. That's as far as anyone's ever been on it so far in the weeks that we've been here.
Shooting the 10-pin. Covering it for his second spare in a row. By the way, the winner of this match will return next week on Top Star Bowling to meet Mr. Bill Pace from St. Louis. A bit high, the 10-pin spins around, and Don has a 4-7-10. And things are getting no better for him. You notice the fact that even though that 10-pin was wiggling back there and probably off the mark, was still picked up and set down by these Brunswick machines. Oh, how close can you come? How close can you come? Don gave it a whirl, and he gave Dick Hoover a grin as he came back, saying, what do you think of that one?
Dick probably said, fine. I'm glad you didn't pick it.
75 for Don through the second frame, trying to get started now. Out in strike. Well, you got to get that first one before you can put them together. Now let's see what Dick Hoover will do. He has 19 in the first frame with a spare up. Don looks a bit perturbed as we view him on the player's bench. And that's the sort of thing that will cause him even more consternation. A big strike for Dick Hoover, his first of this game. He has a 54-pin lead at the moment. Don Ellis had won 3 weeks in a row. Dick Hoover is here to try to do something about it. Trying to earn the right to meet Bill Pace from St. Louis. Didn't think those Score Kings very long to get off of the alley bed down there, as Hoover bombed one in there. And now Ellis has to match that double or drop further behind. It's going to be on the nose, crossing over, baby split, 310, the second one that he has left today. He had the 310 earlier. In the roll-off of the first game, and he converted for 201. Came back with 198. Hasn't had that big game yet. Covers it very nicely. Giving him 45 through the third with a spare up. LaSalle watches. And Dick Hoover, instead of getting into difficulty here, Whitey has added to his lead consistently.
Yes, well, that double really gives the advantage, Jack.
Let's see what Don can do right here. Fine working ball, but a bit too thin as it turned out, leaving the 7-pin. You can't find that pocket anywhere near the fashion that Dick Hoover has been able to.
No, I think Dick has been able to even go out past that second arrow or rangefinder on both lanes, and he's bringing the ball back in. That's why he's getting such mixing action.
So even with his speed, Dick has been able to bring that ball back. There goes the 7-pin, is covered by Don Ellis. Don knows he's in trouble. There's no sense kidding ourselves because he's certainly not kidding himself. He has 64 through the 4th. With a spare up, here's Dick Hoover rolling in the 5th and looking for a pheasant, a turkey. Two, 4, 5, 8.
That's that light hit, Jack, that didn't carry. Normally, Dick's been actually pushing him out, and I guess he probably figured on this lane here, we were always talking about that second rangefinder, and he was right on it.
So it was the ball that didn't carry through there for him.
That's correct.
Won't hurt himself too much. He was working on a strike, and he brings it back. And that gives Mr. Ellis 64 through the 4th frame with a spare up. Dick Hoover has 85 through the 4th with a spare up. We'll be coming back here on Top Star Bowling in just a moment. A 62-pin lead for Dick Hoover and a 10-pin. But as Don Ellis pointed out, that pocket belongs to Dick Hoover. And with the kind of ball that he throws, he's going to get his share of strikes. He had 7 in the last game, only 3 in the first game, 2 so far in this particular game. There's the 10. Well, unless Don Ellis starts along about now, we almost know who Bill Pace is going to be bowling next week. Don working on a spare. Was hoping for a Brooklyn, leaves the 6-pin. Over the weeks, we've had very few Brooklyns. I can recall only one that Andy Rogozniker got here a few weeks ago.
These last 2 pitches on lane 30, it looks like the ball actually got away from Don.
There's the 6. And the point difference in the game in the match so far is 61 pins. Still not too late. We'll be going to hit one. There's one here in the 7th frame. Let's see if Dick Hoover answers the call. If Don Ellis were to go all the way from there, he could end up with a 223 game. That one was out. Remember, it did come up. And the 1-2-8 remains. So on the spare, Dick Hoover. Now 121 through the 6th.
I think in this type of a match, Jack, definitely that they realize that gets on that last game, they're still plugging away for that $1,000.
59 pins difference right at the moment. Hoover tried to spare. He wasn't quite sure he was going to get that 8-pin, but he did. He's been a model of consistency. Yeah? They had that real big second game of 236, starting off with 4 in a row. That has made the difference in the match, a 59-pin difference right at this point, as Hoover bowls in the 8th frame. And comes up with a split. That's his first split
No, the
of the
king
day.
isn't out of the woods yet.
No, this one isn't over yet.
Don has a possible chance for 223.
Well, it depends what Hoover does here. This 4-6 is what? Nigh on to impossible. So it depends on what Dick does in the 9th and 10th. So a 9 count for him is first open of a match, giving Hoover 148 through the 8th. He's studying the scoreboard off to the right to see if Mr. Ellis can possibly catch him. But there's little doubt that Don Ellis needs strikes. Nothing less will do. Whoops. A bit high. Rock the 4-pin. Needed it, but didn't get it. Couldn't get the double. He's in his 8th frame. The lead is now 47 pins. Dick Hoover started with a 41-pin advantage, so he was in terrific shape when this 3rd and final game of the match got underway. Now in shooting the 4-pin, getting it. Giving in 123 through the 7th with a screw-up. See, there's only about 5-pin difference in this match right at this point. But added to that 41 that Dick Hoover enjoyed, makes it a 46-pin difference with only 2 frames left to roll. Don Ellis in the 9th frame right now. And he just can't get in the pocket. 258. Now, if he strikes out, it'd be 190 for him. Dick Hoover needs only a mark.
One mark, Jack, yes, that would do it. 2 frames and with a good pin count.
How about that for a mark? You buy that one? There's the strike for Dick Hoover in the 9th, and that will do the match.
I think he hurt us because he threw those pins all the way back here.
It really splattered him. I was going to say, there's nothing prettier than a Dick Hoover strike, thinking in terms of that real fast ball that he threw. But that's not true, because the aspect of bowling is that when anybody gets a strike, it looks good and get the satisfaction that folks look for when they go out to their local bowling lanes to bowl. There's a double for Dick Hoover, finishing in a blaze of glory here. That's his first one in the 10th. 208 goes all the way. And that would give him a 648 series. Don Ellis bowled 652 in one of his previous innings. A 310 for Dick Hoover. Doesn't hurt him right at this point, although it does detract from his final total. So we'll end up with 196 if he hits this one. And 636 if he covers. And there it is. There is a handshake. Don Ellis knows that it's over. 196 for Dick Hoover. He bowled 204, 236, 196, 636. Don Ellis working on a spare. He's on the roll off. Rolls it over, gets a 9 count for 159 through the 9th. 179 is potential high. 478 would therefore, 578 would therefore be his total. And that's not usually good enough to win in this competition.
No, I think, Jack, that actually Don is that kind of a champion that he probably won't alibi as just what happened, but it's one of those things that happen in sport. He just fell apart. You know?
We'll have a chance to move with Don when we hand out the money and the LaSalle wrist. Don needs a 10 count for 179. They finally hit Brett Lane, ironically enough. Finishes with 179, Dick Hoover 196. The match is over. Dick Hoover has won. He'll be coming back here on Top Star Bowling, 636 to 578. 636, 578. Dick Hoover, the winner over Don Ellis. And Don, you were here for 3 weeks because Reynolds, Mr. Hoover today.
Just couldn't take care of him at all. Dick bowled very well today, and of course I was all over the lanes out there. Never did really get good situated.
Here's a very attractive, has been presented by LaSalle, the Precision Jeweled Watch. Watch for you, Don.
I guess they're going to send me all my watches and send me home.
Right, we have a ticket in the pocket for Houston. And $500 as well, which you'll get around to in a moment. Hoover, congratulations to you. There's your watch.
Thank you very much, Jack.
And let me see which to pull out first. That's for 5. That's yours, Don Ellis.
Good.
Don, I know that the folks have enjoyed watching you during the weeks here on Top Star Bowling. Very best of luck to you in your future bowling endeavors.
Thank you very much, Jack. Enjoyed very much being here.
All right, Don Ellis, ladies and gentlemen. And Dick Hoover, here's $1,000 for you and an invitation to come back next week and take on Bill Pace.
Thank you very much, Jack. It's been a deep pleasure being here.
Dick Hoover, folks, our winner here on Top. And a very sincere invitation for you to join us next week in Top Star Bowling, and it's going to be a very wonderful attraction. Dick Hoover and Bill Pace. Thanks for tuning in. Jack Black saying thanks for your time this time. Till next time, so long. Top Star Bowling, opened by Brunswick, the #1 name in bowling. Top Star Bowling is sanctioned by the American Bowling Congress.